I got it. Just double check that works, Yaakov.
Yeah, I heard it.
Yep.
Huh? Yeah, please. Okay, so you tell someone on the top line. Okay, so Veloy Nivreches HaKoivsin. So we said that you're not allowed to take a Nivreches HaKoivsin is some sort of laundry hole that has water in it to do laundry. All right, so Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Bar Hua, Lo Shanu Ella Min HaMechamtzan. Right? It's only the one that they actually soak the water in. Aval Min HaNadyan Arba Amas. But if it's but it's from the pool that's basically meant for uh, scrubbing, then that's 4 amas. You need an additional amma, right? Um, yeah, because what Rafi says when you scrub things, the water splashes. When the water splashes, so then it gets all over the place. I guess I don't know what's wrong with water splashing. I imagine the water is going to ruin
It's what's in the water.
the wall. Well, I don't know. Is it because it's in the water, or is just the water going to ruin the wall?
It's because of the dog stuff in the water. Well, in the clothes from the soaking tub. Now they have to wash that out. That's what the second tub is for.
I hear. Okay, it sounds like from Rashi it's just the water that's the issue. But okay, so Tani Nami Nebrechas HaKoivs and Dalet Amas. You have to stay away from the laundry, whatever it is, bucket or hole, whatever it is that they're doing is 4 amas. But we said 3 tvachim, meaning there's a big difference between 3 tvachim and 4 amas. Elo lashma mino, because Ram Nachman must be like Ram Nachman, that there's two different. There's, I guess, what do you call it? Aren't there different settings on a washing machine? There's a rinse mode, and so one of them is the soaking mode, and the other one is the rinse mode. Vika the Rami Lomerim. So there are those that have this same chocolate, but they ask it as a kasha. It's not Nevrechas HaKoivs in Gimel Tvachim. The hole for the laundry is 3 tvachim. But Tanya Arba Amas, we learned in the price it's 4 amas. Amar Nachman, Amar Rav Ravul, like kasha kamen on mechamtzan, kamen on nadir. One is talking about that it was there for soaking, and one is there that it's there for scrubbing. He said he learned it beferish that it says mechamtzan. He learned his version of the brisa was that it says mechamtzan specifically. That a mechamtzan needs 3 tvachim, everything else is 4 amas. Not everything else, but the scrubbing one. Fine. Then it says sod besid. So in the Mishnah it said that you have to keep it away, 3 tvachim away from the wall, and then it says this sod besid, and you need to line it with lime. So anytime you have the letter vi, sometimes that could either mean and or it could mean or. So the question is, do you need to keep the bar away more than 3 tvachim away and line it or not? Siboilu. The sod besitnan, and you put lime on there. Idilma oisad besitnan. Is it ve, meaning you have to do and both, or is it one or the other? So pshita divisad besitnan. It must be that you need both. The isagadai the oisad besitnan. If you think that's or imkain larvinu v'lisninu. If not, then why don't they just take the next two cases together? Meaning, if this case and the next case in the Mishnah, which is talking about the olive junk and the zevel, and there it's ve. So then why don't it just say both cases together? I'm sorry, there it says or. There it's or. So if this one's also or, so then why don't you just put the whole list together? By separating the list, it must mean that this is ve. So then the Gemara says, well, maybe that's not a right. Maybe it's not similar one damage to the other damage. right? Because meaning there's different types of damages. Reisha has like the Masuna. The Reisha is talking about a hezek from water damage. The Seifa has like the Havala, and the Seifa is talking about damage from hevel, from extra heat. Right? So meaning they're both saying the same thing, that it's one or the other. The reason why it's separated is because each one has its own each one has its own problem. Fine. So Toshima, Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Sela Habav Yadayim, we learned on the bottom of the previous stuff. If you know, why don't you go sit someplace else? Thank you. Sela Habav Yadayim. If you have a Sela that's a Sela that meaning rocks that get crushed, right? So the dirt, it gets soft, right? I mean, basically it needs soft dirt. Meaning if you have a wall in between two properties, but the dirt is very soft, so each one could make their own bar on either side of the wall. This one stays 3 tvachim away, and this sod besid, and he puts lime in there. And this one's marchik gimel tvachim and the sod besid. Taima the babi yadayim. The reason is because it goes in your hands, meaning it was so soft. But if it didn't, right, then you don't need both, right? Then you don't need to keep your bar 3 tvachim away and do sid. Again, the end of the Mishnah, this price is saying that with soft land, you need to do both, because soft land can be really damaging. So you need to do both. So it's mashma, that's only because it's soft land that you need to do both. Mashma, regular hard land, you don't need to do both. So my answer is no. Who I didn't avagav the loy babi yadayim nami sod besid. Even if it's not soft, man, you have to put lime in there too. Babi yadayim etzirchalein. We need the case of babi yadayim, which means that it's very soft land. Since it's very soft, then maybe you would need a lot more space. Meaning 3 tvachim wouldn't be enough. Kamash Malan, that it's enough. 3 tvachim is enough. So that's what the Gemara said it's talking about soft dirt. But otherwise it would be the same din as hard dirt. Okay. Then the Gemara says, Marchikin as a gefes, as a zevel, as a melach, as a slime. So we said you have to take away gefes is the olive junk and manure, salt, stones. You need to put them 3 tvachim away from the boundary. Now nothing. We'll learn the mission over there. There's something called hatmana on Shabbos. You're not allowed to insulate. So there's 2 dinim. From before Shabbos, you're not allowed to insulate with something that will add heat. And on Shabbos, you're not even allowed to insulate with something that won't add heat. So basic insulation would be like wrapping the food in a towel so it stays warm. Right? Another form of insulation would be, let's say you want to put food on top of a crock pot, so then you would take a towel and wrap it around the crock pot so that the food on top of the crock pot stays hotter. So that's also to do on Shabbos. There's lists in the Mishnayos and Shabbos. There's lists of what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do, meaning of what adds heat, what doesn't add heat. So the Mishnah there says, what are you allowed to insulate? What are you not allowed to insulate? Ain't time to like kefes, like zevel, like melech, like sid, like chol. Right? So it's all the same list as we have in our Mishnah. But here it adds you can't do it with sand. Whether it's wet sand or dry sand. How come here it says by our Mishnah, by boundaries, it says sela, which is rocks, and it doesn't say anything about chol, right? Well, Mashna Hasam, and how come over there it says the Katani chol, it says sand, but like Katani slime, and it doesn't say rocks. So Amar Rav Yosef, if ain't dark and Shabnei Adam lahatin v'sloyim. The reason is because people don't insulate with rocks. And Taisa says the reason why you don't insulate with rocks because rocks are not airtight. Air is going to escape, and Mamela, your food is not going to be as hot, right? So then if you're saying that the Mishnah is only using examples of things that you normally would insulate with, well, the Mishnah in Shabbos says that you can use wool. I mean, wool and Lashana Shalgama, which is purple, strips of purple. The Tanya Tana Begiza Tzamer, Tzipet Tzamer. You could use wool and shearings of wool and combed wool, and Lashana Shalgama is strips of purple wool. Moichin is soft, which is also another type of wool. But they're muksa, so you can't take them. I mean, you could insulate with them, but you can't take them. So, but people don't normally insulate with these type of things. So why is the Mishnah listing it? We just said that the reason why the Mishnah doesn't list rocks is because it doesn't want to. It's only listing things that are used, but here's the whole list of things that the Mishnah says, and people don't use it. It says that the friend is going to say something about it. Right? What does
So
that
it's
mean?
interesting that they say rocks because people that are forging metal actually use fire bricks as insulation. It's been used forever.
And it's meant to keep it hot, are you saying?
Yeah. It's specifically meant to keep it hotter because you need metal to be very hot so it's pliable.
Uh-huh.
And bricks are used for that, to maintain that heat
Interesting.
in a forge.
So, but maybe bricks are different than
because
rocks.
it's not a natural state, maybe.
No, maybe the bricks line up equally on each other.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Maybe. Okay, so anyway, so Abai says interesting yisoid here. He says Yakir Elov Re'u. It says one is going to talk about its friend, meaning we're going to say a certain thing, and you have to figure out the friend should talk about it. Meaning, learn one example, and then you learn out and then take the rest of an example. So here by boundaries it says rocks, but what in the it means soil and sand too. There it says sand, but what in the slime, and the same thing is for slime. Right? If it's Yagid Lavru, then why don't you just say it all in one Mishnah and then learn everything out on the other Mishnah? I mean, why do you have to have the list? I mean, if you're saying that you're supposed to have the brains to learn from one and then go to the other, so then why don't we just say one whole list, either by boundaries and then learn it all out to Shabbos, or learn it all out by Shabbos, write it all by Shabbos and learn it all out to boundaries. Right? The list and then only learn one by the other. And the same thing the other way around. Meaning why? So why do we have the whole list? Ella Marava. So Ella, like we said, Ella is a new teretz. Ella Marava. Hasam Hain the time of the Likatani Slayim. The reason why it doesn't say Slayim in the Mishnah on Shabbos about insulating food on Shabbos is Mishum de Mishtaki Likadera, because they break the pot. Nobody ever uses rocks because you put rocks and those rocks may damage the pot. Here, the reason why it doesn't say chol, because it gets very hot. Sand gets hot. Meaning sand insulates hot things, and it keeps cold things cold. So mamela, sand doesn't have any negative effect on a wall. It just will maintain what it is. So therefore, it's not dangerous. It's not dangerous, whatever. It's not damaging to have sand. Right? It's interesting because you have these insulated bags. It says they keep things hot and they'll keep cold things cold. Right? That's what insulation does. So that's what the Gemara is saying, that sand does the same thing. Then Gemara says, V'hatani Rabbi Ishi Yachol. Rabbi Ishi has a brisa, right? We know that Rabbi Ishi did compiled the brises, and he did say chol, right? Meaning by the boundaries. So when it says hasam but masuna, that was talking about wet sand. By wet sand, that could cause damage. Nami listening the masuna. So then let our Tana also say chol, and let's talk about that where it's wet. Right? Hatanale, the Gemara says we did say it. Amasamayim. Amasamayim is wet. Right? So Gemara says Atumila Katani Amasamayim Katani Nevrechas Akavsin. But we said Amasamayim, which is a stream, and we also said another type of water, which was the bucket to do laundry, not the bucket, but the hole in the ground to do laundry. So clearly we were writing different types of water sources. There you needed to write the laundry and you needed to write the stream. Because Amasamayim is kviya, meaning it's that's always going to be there, right? But aval nevrechas akavsin, but a hole that you make in the ground to do laundry, the loy kviya, it's not set a malay. Maybe I'll say that it's not. Bitana nevrechas akavsin mishum the cover of a kaimi. Nevrechas akavsin because it sits there. Cover from the word mikvah. It's a hole in the ground full of water, and that's it. It sits there. It doesn't go anywhere. Aval amasamayim loy, but maybe a stream of water, so maybe not. So tricha, maybe you wouldn't need to distance it 3 tfachim. So tricha, that's what you need in those cases. But wet sand is not. We don't need it in the Mishnah because you can learn it out from the other wet things, meaning from the laundry pit and from the Amas Hamayim. We know that anything with water can cause damage to walls. Okay. So machiganas is royim v'samachrisha. So then it says you have to distance if you can't plant and you can't plow within 3 tfachim. So Zroyim, it says, what are you talking about for Zroyim? Seeds. When you plant seeds, you need to plow. So why do you need to say in the Mishnah, don't plant seeds and don't plow? If you're planting seeds, then you have to plow. Basic farming is that normally you plow in order to plant. So what do you need both? The Gemara says, but no, it's talking about the type of planting where they're just, hamish. They're just taking the seeds and throwing it out there. Machrisha, okay, so what about a plowing? Usually when you plow, you're gonna put the seeds there. So Gemara says, it's talking about where you were plowing for trees, you weren't plowing for seeds. Okay, so why don't we say because of water? Right? Your seeds need water to grow. So why do you need to say seed? It says you got water, you're gonna have to water it, which we already said you're not allowed to do within 3 tvachim. Tana Eretz Yisrael, because we say the Tana is talking about Eretz Yisrael. Tichsiv limtar hashamayim tishtem mayim. That you don't, from in Eretz Yisrael, as we know, that's why we're doing the same bracha, the same talamata. It all goes with Eretz Yisrael because that Eretz Yisrael, that's the way they irrigate through rain. They at least they try not to use regular, unnatural irrigation. So Mamela, we're talking about where the guy would plant seeds and he would not add any water. So the Gemara says, "Lememra d'Zrayim." Do we say that Zrayim on Talmud Beis now? Let's start in Kamashtarshi. So basically, what you're saying is that seeds of vegetables grow sideways, right? Meaning, you're saying you're not allowed to plant seeds within 3 tvachim of your neighbor's property because the roots may go under his property. So that means we're saying that vegetable seeds grow sideways. But the Nami, we learned in the Mishnah, Mavrich a geffen. I hope the Olam remembers this we had this mamash last week in Playim, right? Mavrich is a geffen ba'aretz. If somebody is thank you. If Mavrich is what we call Mavrich, he's grafting. It's not really grafting, meaning you take a vine and you stick it into the ground so that it grows a new vine. That's basically what it is. So Mavrich is a geffen ba'aretz. So basically what you do is you have a vine growing up, and then what you do is you bend over the vine, and then you stick it into the ground a few feet later, and then you let it grow under the ground, then you pull it out of the ground a few feet, let's say a few feet later. So can you plant vegetables? I mean, it basically makes a tunnel. The vine makes a tunnel under the ground, and you pull it out later. And like this, you hopefully get 2 vines, right? So the question is, where it's under the ground, can you plant seeds? Essentially, a tunnel, the kids always talk about, like when you go through the tunnel into Manhattan, they think the tunnel is going through the water. The tunnel is not going through the water. It's going under the ground, which is under the water, right? So can you, let's say a guy in that tunnel planted grape seeds. So can somebody on top of the tunnel, in a house that's on top of the tunnel, because the tunnel starts, there are houses on top of the tunnel or buildings, can a guy on there plant vegetables? That's essentially the Gemara, that's essentially the Mishnah in Klayim. So it says, if there isn't on top of it dirt of 3 tvachim, meaning there isn't 3 tvachim of space, 3 tvachim space, you cannot put seeds on top of it. Tani Allah. Aval zereas etzdadin elech ve'elech. But on the sides, you would be allowed to, right? Meaning, as long as it's not directly on top of the vine. But if it's to the sides, then you can. Why? Because the chayra, what it seems to be saying, is because vegetable seeds don't grow to the sides; they grow up and down, right? So how come our Gemara seems to be saying that it will? Some Reb Chaga b'shem Reb Yosi. Reb Chaga said in the name of Reb Yosi. It's interesting, right? Gershon, it doesn't usually do b'shem. Isn't that? Am I not mistaken? I mean, I just drove for a lot of hours, so maybe my head is a little fried. We don't have b'shem too much, right? It's usually Amar of Chana, Amar of Yosi.
Yeah.
Right? Anybody else just noticed that? Okay. So Amar of Chaga b'shem Reb Yosi shemachliden es akarka u'maylan afetichua. The reason why you can't plant near a wall, vegetables near a wall, is because what it does is it breaks up the dirt, and then memela, like when roots go through, then it breaks it, and then it loosens up the dirt, and then it's going to end up loosening the wall. Yeah, Aaron Kaplan, you back already? That's
I
not
am.
bad.
17B wasn't so bad, Yaakov.
Not bad. Okay, good. Because by me it was backed up.
No, not
A
so bad. I'm
few.
back in the bungalow already.
All right. That fine. Vesmei raglayim and a kaisel gimel tfachim. Oh, so this unfortunately was the way it was back then when they went to the bathroom on walls. I don't know if it's unfortunately or fortunate. I guess we're fortunate we have bathrooms. But it says mei raglayim, you have to keep 3 tfachim away from the wall. A person is allowed to urinate next to the wall of his friend. It says in Malachim, he was giving a curse. He says, I'm going to cut off from Achav anybody who urinates against the wall, which is essentially a nickname for males. I remember when I learned this in Malachim. There's one thing I probably remember from Malachim. What kind of nickname is that for males? People that urinate on walls, right? They couldn't figure out another way to call males. They couldn't call them like egomaniacs or I don't know, shugayim. No, the urine. Okay, whatever. But the point is that was considered a norm, right? So why are you keeping our Mishnah said you gotta urinate 3 tefachim away from the wall? The
Still is the norm.
The norm is what?
Still is the norm in many places.
It is. What I'm saying is that the way? Is that the way you call a male, right? Okay, whatever.
Maybe,
Yes, but that's
maybe it's describing the destruction of Achav, so they wanted to do like Derech Gnus or something. Which I'm saying I'm going to wipe out, maybe.
I hear.
Jesse, that applies to you.
Anything I came up with. What do you say, Parrot?
Tell Jesse 3 tefachim away from that wall.
Yeah, the Taka, we have to.
Which one? That one or that one?
No, but I'm saying I don't talk it, Jesse. How far is your pool away from your neighbor?
Just telling us the derech. Nashim are not mashtim standing up, and they can't be mashtim on the wall. So that's
right. Obviously,
like
good. I mean, and a chanami, that's true, but it still has to be.
I thought my anical. We only have one bathroom in the bungalow, dude. So somebody's in the bathroom. His bathroom, and he's 6 years old. He's going crazy. I said, "Guy, guy, to the boy." So fine. So he goes outside to the tree. We don't have fences. He goes to the tree. He came back and I says, this is the look, man. Shalo Asani Isha. Why he say Shalo Asani Isha? A woman can't just go outside and be mashed him however she wants. But that's the derech. It's a wall. Whatever. Okay. All right, believe it.
Yeah, no, okay, no, but you're right, Racham, and women can't do that. You're 100% right. But just an interesting thing. Okay, whatever it is, the Gemara's kasha is that you see that you're allowed to urinate on a wall, right? And our Mishnah says more than 3 tefachim away. Yeah. So anyway, the Gemara says va'anan tanan ve'esmei raglayim min ha'kaisel shloisha tefachim. Our Mishnah says 3 tefachim. So it says Hasam b'shayfchin. There it's talking about where you're pouring it, meaning you're taking a, what do you call those chamber pots, where they urinate into it all the time. So you can't, that much urine that you can't put up against a wall. But a regular one person urinating, so then that's fine. Skip the parentheses. So Tashima. Layashno the mind betzad koisa shechaver, a guy should not urinate by his friend's wall. Elim ken hirchim menu gimel tfachim. Unless he stays more than 3 tefachim away. B'medvar b'koisel levena. That's what a koisel that has the like, I don't, not bricks made out of pure stone. Right? Rashi says it's titch and it's yavshu. Sounds like our types of bricks. You take mud and you dry it up. But if it's a stone wall, yazik, you have to stay as far away so you can't damage the wall. And how much is that? Tefach. That's a tefach, right? Because that wall is a stronger thing. And if it's a wall that was made on top of ground that has lots of rocks, mutter, then it's mutter, right? Meaning urine is not gonna. The problem with the urine is that's gonna damage the dirt, which will then weaken the wall. But if the wall is made out of rocks and it's on top of rocky terrain, I guess we call it that, then it's fine. To Yufta the Rav Archana, is this so this is a kasha to Yufta, meaning because here you see that you're not allowed to urinate on top of walls, right? But it's a tiyufta, fine. Oh,
Seems that most people who use public urinals are very makbid on that last price.
What do you
To
mean?
be market ketefach. There's always a
far
public.
away you stay?
It seems a lot of people are makbid on that.
I hear. Okay. Yeah. Ask Paris to send his family picture he once took in City Field. Maybe not. But anyway, yeah. Fine.
So
So
halacha, you would not be able to do that, right? It'd be mazik your friend's wall to do that.
it seems like it, yeah. It seems like it. I don't know if today's walls, I don't know how they work.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't check the Shulchan Aruch on this. But anyway. But the problem is that Rabbi Barchana quoted a pasuk in Melachim that says that men urinate on walls, right? So when it says about Rabbi Barchana Krokam, he brought a pasuk. So Hasam Hachi Kamar there by the pasuk in Melachim. This is what it's saying: Afilu midi the darke lishtuni bekir, even when it's the derech to urinate on the wall, I'm not going to allow him. Meaning we're not going to leave him. And who is that? A kelev, it's a dog. So now we're saying that the pasuk is not talking about men. It's talking about dogs. And he's saying even dogs are not going to escape from the punishments. Right? Okay, so that's how you would have to teach it that way. Even though I think the Mefarshim and Malachim say that it's talking about men. Okay, fine. Now we get into Tuman Tara.
So the Torah time says it's like a malik. We don't want to leave any zecher for even the animals. It's the same thing by Achav. Even the dogs.
That's what he's saying. Even the dog. Interesting. But I think
interesting.
Yeah, I think the Mefarshim and the Malachim call it men. I think Rashi. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember it. Yeah. Okay, so now we get into Tumah Tara. So we know that when you have Tumah under an oil, so you have a mace under an oil, and everything under that oil, under that tent, under that cover, becomes Tumah. But let's say it's in one room and in another room not. So then it depends on how large an opening there is in between the room, from one room to the other. If there isn't a large opening from one room to the other, so then it's not a tefach. It's not a tefach of opening from one room to the other. Then the tumah will stay contained within that room. That's what you get into the hospitals in Eretz Yisrael. They make sure that the morgue is going to always be a double door, like in a jewelry store. Meaning one door can't open without the other. When the other door is open, like this. I mean, supposedly that's what it is. Like this, the tumah doesn't escape. right? So now what happens if you have an opening and it's stuffed with food? So the question is that food, since food normally gets eaten, do we say that that's not a real opening? Or do we say, I mean, it is a real opening, even though it's stuffed, or do we say it's not? So let's see. So Amar of Tuvi, Bar Kisna, Amar Shmuel. Rokik, Eina Memayit Bechaloin. A rokik means a thin matzah. Is not memayit a window, meaning the guy's probably going to take this matzah out of the hole, and therefore, since he's going to probably take it out, so therefore the tumah is going to go through it, even though right now it's stuffed with this matzah. Ma'ir rocket. So Gemara says, why are you saying rocket? Afilu avanami, even if it's even if it's a piece of challah, right? Meaning that somebody's going to take out the challah from there. What's the difference that it's thin or thick? The Gemara says, "Loimi boy, kama." It's saying loimi boy, ava. You don't. It goes without saying that a thick piece of cake, keep it to ichsile lemivatale, since it's roi, meaning it's fitting to eat. It's not going to be mavatal there, and it's not going to be considered like it's stuffing up the hole. Avarokik de mamayas, but a thin piece that gets disgusting very easily. Aim batuli mevatale. Maybe you would think, okay, it's disgusting. Nobody's going to eat this thing anyway, so it's batal. Kamash malon. So if we say that it's that we look at the thin matzah, that's also not going to be batal, and somebody's going to take it out. Okay, so this is why don't we say that this matzah is something that's makabel tuma? This is a big rule in Tumah and Tara. Bez Hashem, when we finish Mishnah Yisrael and we get into Tyrus, this is going to be a major rule to know. If something becomes makabel tuma, it can't block tuma. Meaning the reason why, let's say you have a second floor on a house and there's a mace on the first floor. So it would block it. Now, the reason why it would block it is because the ceiling and roof, obviously this is just a small example, but the reason is because the roof is attached to the house, which is attached to the ground, so therefore it's not makabel tuma, so therefore it blocks it. But let's say you had schach, right? Well, schach was, schach, no, well, let's say you put, I don't know, let's say you put something that would not be makabel tuma, let's say something that would be makabel tuma, I'm sorry, on there, then it would not block it, right? Only something that can't become tummy blocks tuma. So the Gemara is saying, so food is makabel tuma, right? How that works when food is makabel tuma is a whole different sugi. But the Gemara is assuming that if food is makabel tuma, it should not block that opening in the wall. So the Gemara says, "Shanilish b'mei peris." Right? It was not, the bread was not made with water. This is for you with your challahs, right? It wasn't made with water, it was made with fruit juice. Since it was made with fruit juice, it's not makabel tuma. Meaning not only is this whole thing about making bezainis on bread that's made with fruit juice has to do with brachas, it also has to do with tuma. Right? And the same thing with also afrashas challah. Same thing. May peris, you have to have some water mixed into it. But here we're saying that since it's made with may peris, so therefore it is not makabel tuma.
Or because it was never hukshar, right?
Correct. You need to be hukshar l'kabel tuma, meaning the food, in order to become tameh, when it's made with may peris, just like a fruit, can't become tameh until you wash it. So therefore, a challah or matzah or whatever it is also can't. Right? If there was water in there, so then that's hukshar l'kabel tuma. But if it's fruit juice, then it's not. Right?
Does this mean that stam wheat is shmur mishas katsira?
I don't know. It sounds like that. Sounds like that. Anyway, so that's what it's saying. So the Gemara says, Meisvei kupa malaya tevin. You have a box full of straw. The chavis malaya groigers, and you have a barrel full of dried figs. Hamunachim b'chaloin, and it's all it's placed in a window. Meaning, so in a box, there's a lot of grain. Grain is also food. And it's blocking the mace from going from one to the other. So Ryan kol she'ilu yinatu v'yichaylim tevin v'groigers lamed v'neyasim. If theoretically you would take away the barrel, the grain and the dried figs, the groigers, would be able to stay inside this opening. chaytzitzin, then it's chaytzitz and it blocks the tumah. Ve'im lav, but if not, and the only way the straw is going to stay in that opening is with the utensil that it's in, then ein chaytzitzin, it doesn't block it. Why? Because kelim amar kabel tumah. Utensils amar kabel tumah. We said something that can become tumah does not block tumah. Okay, so teven chazil be'emte, but teven should be right to feed to an animal, and therefore they're probably going to take. Let's say again, we're saying we look at the pot as if it's not. If you could take out the pot and the straw will still stay in the wall, then we say that blocks because straw can't become tummy, right? And it's going to stay there the whole time. So what do you mean it's going to stay the whole time? Maybe the guy's going to take the straw and feed it to his animal, right? Why don't we question for that? So we answer, we're talking about Besaria. It's talking about where it was decayed. The straw was decayed, so you're not giving it to the animal. So then we says, okay, chazi latina. So you could use it for cement or for mud to make bricks. So Gemara says the ispe kaitzi, it has thorns in it. Since it has thorns in it, nobody's using it for bricks. So Gemara says, okay, chazi la saka, you could use it for firewood. But Masuna, it's talking about where it's wet. Okay, so chazil has a gadol. It's right for a huge fire, meaning a huge fire. If you put wet straw into it, it will first dry the wet straw, the fire, the heat, and then it will burn. So you can use it for a large fire. Has a gadol l'shchiyah. So that's not common. So therefore, wet. So we're talking about straw that's wet, decayed, right, and has thorns in it, will block the tumah from one room to the other room. But if it's missing any of those things, then a taka won't block it. Okay, groigris hachazile, but what about a groigris? It dried. What?
If it's wet, why will it not be mikabel tumah?
I mean, how did it get wet?
Yeah.
Maybe it only got. Maybe it's from internally. Maybe it wasn't
from
from
the
water
rot.
that came out of it. Yeah, from the rotting. Maybe. Second one says groigris hachazile. What about a dried fig? Amar Shmuel kish b'shehitrifu. Talking about where it was full of worms. The figs that we're talking about is where the worms got infested the figs. So therefore, it rots. It's not roy la'achila, and nobody is going to take it out of there. Okay, the island could go daven mincha, even though we started late. If I didn't have to daven mincha, I would do a mishnah now. But yeah, okay, let's. Yeah, okay, shkayat everybody. I apologize for being late. Let's say a tilim yud gimel. Lametzech mizul David Adonai Adonai tishkacheni datlach Adonai tastis benef mimeni Adonai oshes eitzas benafshi yogin b'vavi yomim Adonai yom oive eloi. Habita anini